Have you ever felt like something was missing, but couldn't name what it was? Like a quiet ache in your chest, a soft longing, a sense that part of you stayed behind somewhere. In a moment, in a memory, in a version of you you can't quite reach. Sometimes, it's not the dramatic losses that leave the deepest impact, but the ones that happened so slowly, so silently. You didn't even notice they were slipping away. This message is for that part of you. The part that whispers in the quiet. That stirs when you see someone laughing freely, or feel tears rise for no reason at all. You lost something, but not forever. Because anything that was truly yours, still is. Still waiting. Still breathing. Still calling you home. So I invite you now to slow down. Open your heart, even just a little. And let's go on a journey together, not to mourn what's gone, but to remember what's still alive inside you. And if this message touches something sacred in you, please, with love, like, share, and subscribe. Someone else may be walking with the same invisible emptiness, and your small act might be the light they've been praying for. Now breathe, and let's go find what you didn't know you lost. There are certain feelings we can't explain. You're standing in a room full of people, smiling, present. But something inside you feels just a step behind. You wake up on an ordinary morning, with nothing particularly wrong, and yet, there's a weight in your chest. Not heavy enough to call sadness, but just enough to feel not whole. This is the kind of loss that doesn't have a name. No headline. No goodbye. No closure. Just a whisper that something is missing. And here's the truth that few dare to say out loud. Sometimes, you lose parts of yourself before you even realize they were yours. A dream you quietly abandoned. A version of you that adapted too much. A light that dimmed slowly, out of survival. It's not your fault. The world teaches us to move on. To stay productive. To be grateful and never ask too many questions. But your soul doesn't forget what it came here for. And it doesn't forget what was once alive within you. That's why the ache remains. Because something sacred within you has been left behind. Not in punishment, but as a gentle signal. A soul signal. An invitation back to yourself. It shows up in strange ways. In a song that brings tears for no reason. In the quiet envy you feel towards someone who lives more freely than you've allowed yourself to. In the flashes of memory that come when you're alone, not painful, just empty. You didn't lose this thing all at once. It slipped through slowly. In compromise. In silence. In all the times you told yourself, it's okay, I don't need that. But you did. You do. Because it was part of your essence. This kind of loss is subtle, but sacred. Because it points you back to the truth. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are being called. That emptiness you've been carrying? It's not a weakness. It's a map. Leading you home to something real. Something new. Something you didn't know you lost, but have always deserved to reclaim. So if you've felt that gentle ache, if you've carried a sadness without a story, if you've looked at your life and wondered, why does it feel like something's missing, even when everything seems fine? You are not alone. You are awakening. And this journey, right here, right now, is your chance to begin remembering. Let's keep walking, gently. There's something waiting for you. Something that never truly left. Not everything you've lost was taken from you. Some things, you simply forgot you were carrying. Like the way a child forgets they're holding a flower when something frightening appears. You placed parts of yourself down, not because you were weak, but because you were surviving. And now, somewhere deep within, your soul is asking, where did I leave the best of me? The truth is, you were born with treasures. Sacred gifts. A way of seeing the world. A sensitivity that could feel truth before it was spoken. A light that moved with you, quietly but unmistakably. But life, in all its harshness and complexity, didn't always make space for that brilliance. So you began to adapt. To tuck your magic away behind logic. To silence your intuition when it made others uncomfortable. To play small in rooms that couldn't hold your bigness. And you forgot. You forgot how deeply you could love. You forgot the way your laughter used to echo without apology. You forgot the dreams that once pulled at your chest with excitement. Not because they weren't real, but because the world made them feel unrealistic. And now, you walk through your days wondering why you feel out of sync. Disconnected. Like a note in a song that's slightly off. This is not failure. This is not emptiness. This is memory, trying to return. Because what's been forgotten can also be remembered. Those treasures are not lost forever. They've simply been covered, like gems beneath the dust of time and pain. Waiting. Patiently. Until the moment your heart becomes curious again. And maybe that moment is now. Maybe the ache you feel is not just longing, but recognition. A knowing that there's more to you than what the world sees. A quiet rebellion against the version of yourself that has been accepted, but never fully expressed. You were meant for more than just functioning. You were made for fullness. And somewhere inside, you already know what was lost. The way you used to dream without restraint. The way you used to create just for the joy of it. The way you used to believe in things before someone told you to stop. It's all still there. Buried beneath years of being practical. But waiting. Ready. The forgotten treasures within you are not just gifts, they are keys. To your joy. To your wholeness. To the version of you that doesn't just survive, but radiates. So let this be a gentle remembering. Let your soul whisper to you again. Let those lost parts rise, not with drama, but with devotion. Because the most sacred treasure you ever had was you. And you're still here. Ready to be found. No one hands you a manual that says, here is how to forget who you are. But slowly, it happens. You're born whole, wide-eyed, curious, open to wonder. You laugh when you feel joy, cry when you feel hurt. You trust your instincts, believe in magic, speak your truth without apology. And then, little by little, the world begins to whisper. Be quiet. Be realistic. Don't feel so much. Don't dream so big. And because you want to belong, because your tender soul longs for connection, you begin to edit yourself. You silence your intuition in exchange for approval. You trade your authenticity for acceptance. You begin to ask, who do I need to be so that I am safe, loved, and not alone? This isn't weakness. It's survival. It's what the world teaches you to do, to shapeshift in order to fit. So you do. You laugh when you don't want to. You hide your tears. You suppress your creativity. You deny your truth because it feels too inconvenient, too loud, too much. And slowly, you let go of parts of yourself. Not because you wanted to, but because no one ever taught you it was okay to keep them. This is how the forgetting begins. You stop dancing. You stop writing. You stop believing you're worthy unless you're achieving, producing, impressing. And the cost of belonging becomes the loss of your essence. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. Because the world claps for the version of you that performs well. Not the version that feels deeply. But your soul remembers. And that's why, even when everything looks fine, you can feel like something is missing. Because somewhere along the way, the world convinced you that you were too much. Too sensitive. Too intense. Too soft. Too creative. Too emotional. And so you began to shrink. To dim your light so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. To apologize for your joy. To hide your intuition under layers of logic. But beloved, the world was wrong. You were never too much, you were exactly enough. And the parts of you that were silenced weren't flaws. They were gifts. Gifts the world didn't know how to receive. But that doesn't mean they weren't sacred. This chapter of your life is not about blame. It's about reclaiming. Because once you see how the world taught you to let go of yourself, you can begin the holy work of saying, no more. You can choose to remember, to feel, to speak, to shine, not for anyone else, but because your soul deserves to breathe again. And when you begin to return to yourself, the world around you begins to change too. Longing is not a flaw. It's a message. A signal from the deepest part of you that something true has been left behind. You've felt it, haven't you? That sudden ache when you hear a certain song. The quiet envy when someone lives freely, speaks boldly, loves without armor. The way your heart swells when you see a child being their full self, unfiltered, untouched by fear. It's not just admiration. It's recognition. Your soul is saying, that was me once. That could be me again. You see, longing is not emptiness. It's the presence of something that still lives inside you, calling to be remembered. It's the sacred thread that connects you to your wholeness. And if you trace it with honesty, you will find what your soul misses most. It might not be a person. It might not even be a specific moment. It's a feeling, a way of being that once felt natural to you. Maybe it's the sense of freedom you had before the world told you to be careful. Maybe it's the softness you carried before your heart was broken. Maybe it's the belief that your voice mattered, that your ideas were magic, that your spirit was allowed to take up space. You didn't lose these things because they weren't real. You lost them because they were sacred, and sacred things are often the first to be hidden when survival becomes the goal. But they didn't leave. They are still echoing within you. And your longing is their voice. When you find yourself yearning for a life that feels more aligned, more joyful, more present, more you, don't shame that desire. Don't call it foolish. Don't silence it. Instead, lean in. Ask, what am I really missing? What did I used to do, say, or feel that made me feel whole? Where did I stop listening to myself? Because underneath the surface-level distractions, your soul always knows. And the longing won't go away until you listen. Not because it's punishing you, but because it loves you. Your longing is the bridge between your current life and your authentic self. Between who you've become to survive and who you were always meant to be. So the next time that ache rises in your chest, don't push it down. Sit with it. Let it speak. It might be trying to remind you. You used to dream. You used to sing. You used to trust. You used to believe in something beautiful. And you still can. Because the part of you that longs is the part of you that remembers. Sometimes, we don't even realize what we've lost until we feel the weight of its absence. It's not always dramatic. It's not always loud. Sometimes, it's just a subtle disconnection from joy, from presence, from yourself. And slowly, you begin to live around the absence. You laugh, but it feels hollow. You succeed, but it doesn't fulfill you. You go through your days, check the boxes, do what's expected, but underneath it all, there's a quiet question you can't silence. Why does this still not feel like enough? This is what it feels like to live without a piece of your own soul story. Without that spark, that truth, that sacred part of you that once made life feel alive. And the signs are there, not to shame you, but to help you see. Because awareness is the first step to return. Maybe you've felt chronically tired, not just physically, but spiritually. A kind of fatigue that sleep can't fix. It's the tiredness of carrying a life that doesn't reflect your soul anymore. Or perhaps you've become overly busy. You fill your schedule, your space, your mind, because silence makes the emptiness louder. Because in the quiet, you can feel the ache of what's missing. Sometimes it shows up as indecision. As if part of you knows what you want, but can't remember how to trust it. You hesitate. You doubt. You second-guess everything, because the compass within you feels disconnected. Other times, it comes as restlessness. You change jobs. Change cities. Change relationships. But no matter where you go, the feeling follows you. Because what you're missing isn't out there, it's in here. You might even feel numb. As if you've muted your own emotions so well, you don't know how to turn them back on. You exist, but you don't feel. And that, beloved, is one of the clearest signs of living without your full self. But here's what I want you to remember. This numbness, this fatigue, this quiet ache. They are not your enemy. They are messages. Messengers. Gentle invitations from your soul, saying, there's something sacred you've left behind. And it's time to return. Because the truth is, no matter how long you've been living this way, no matter how many layers you've built between yourself and your essence, it's not too late. It never is. What's been lost can be remembered. What's been silenced can be sung again. What's been buried can rise. And the signs that something is missing? They are not signs of failure. They are signs that you are ready. Ready to come home. To yourself. To your joy. To your truth. And soon, you will realize what you thought was lost has been waiting all along. There comes a sacred moment, quiet but undeniable, when you stop searching outside of yourself and start remembering what was never truly gone. It might come as a sudden wave of emotion, or a calm realization while walking or staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night. A moment when, without warning, your soul whispers, "You didn't lose it. You just forgot." And in that instant, the ache turns into awe. You begin to see that what you thought was gone, your joy, your voice, your courage, your connection, was never taken from you. It was buried, hidden beneath the weight of expectations, pain, and survival. But it lived on, like a candle flickering deep in the cave of your being, waiting for your return. Not demanding, not angry, just waiting. And when you finally arrive, with your exhaustion, your doubt, your fragile hope, it does not shame you. It simply says, "Welcome back." That is the miracle of remembrance. Not finding something new, but realizing you were always whole. The world didn't give you your light, so it cannot take it away. The people who didn't see your worth, they couldn't touch your essence. The experiences that made you hide, they only pressed pause on your becoming. And now, something ancient inside you is waking. It says, you were never meant to shrink. You were never too much. You were never broken. And you start to feel it in your breath, in your spine, in your silence. This is what alignment feels like. Not perfection. Not performance. Just truth. You remember the girl who used to sing without fear. The boy who believed in magic. The version of you that dreamed fearlessly, loved fully, felt everything. And you begin to see. They were not naive. They were pure. And they still live within you. That creative spark? Still alive. That tenderness you had to hide? Still intact. That clarity you've been longing for? Already yours. It's overwhelming at first to realize you had what you needed all along. But it's also deeply freeing, because you no longer have to chase anything. You only have to uncover. You only have to peel back the layers, not to become someone else, but to return to the one you were before the forgetting. That moment, the moment you finally remember, is the moment your life begins to change. Not because the world outside shifts instantly, but because you do. And when you shift, your frequency changes. Your choices change. Your boundaries, your relationships, your energy, they all begin to align with who you really are. And life starts meeting you there. So breathe deep, dear soul. What you lost was never gone. It was just waiting for this moment. The moment you remembered the truth. You are the one you've been looking for. Now that you've remembered what was always yours, the question becomes, how do I live from this truth again? Because knowing you've lost something, and even knowing it still lives inside you, isn't enough. You must call it back. Gently. Intentionally. With devotion, not demand. And you don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to do anything dramatic. This is soul work. And soul work begins with softness. Start by making space. Just a few moments each day to turn inward, to breathe and listen, to ask without forcing, what part of me wants to come home today? It could be your creativity, the part of you that once painted, wrote, danced, or dreamed. It could be your inner child, the one who used to believe in magic and didn't apologize for taking up space. It could be your voice, not just the one that speaks out loud, but the one that speaks your truth. Whatever it is, welcome it back slowly. You might feel awkward at first, unfamiliar, like meeting a dear friend after years apart. But keep showing up. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day, to journal, to sit in silence, to cry, to laugh, to be you again without armor. That's all this part of you ever needed. To be seen, to be invited, to be honored. And yes, there will be resistance. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because you're doing it right. Because healing often stirs the dust before it clears the air. You might hear old voices saying, "Who do you think you are to dream again? You're too late. You've changed too much." But that's just the noise of the past trying to hold on to what you've outgrown. You don't need to argue with it. You only need to choose differently now. You can speak to yourself with tenderness. I may have forgotten, but I remember now. I may have let go, but I can reclaim it. I am safe to be all of me. And the more you show up for your own return, not perfectly, but faithfully, the stronger that part of you becomes. You'll feel it in your decisions. You'll hear it in the way you speak to yourself. You'll see it in your reflection, not just in your eyes, but in your energy. The glow of someone who is coming back to life from the inside out. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to include yourself. Welcome back every part that was silenced, shamed, or forgotten. And let it know it belongs. This is how you call it back. With patience. With presence. With the understanding that your soul is not a problem to solve, but a story to remember and reawaken, page by page. And as you do, you will discover you didn't just find something lost. You found yourself. You didn't arrive here by accident. Every ache, every longing, every silent question led you to this moment. A quiet homecoming. Not back to who you used to be, but back to the truth that was never truly gone. This is what wholeness feels like. Not perfection. Not having all the answers, but finally including every part of yourself, the bold, the soft, the sacred, the scarred. You've remembered that something was lost. You've traced its absence through the layers of your life. You've felt the ache of separation and the miracle of recognition. And now, you're holding yourself again. Not as a project, but as a soul. Worthy. Complete. Real. Wholeness doesn't always look like peace and ease. Sometimes it looks like tears flowing without resistance. Sometimes it's saying no for the first time. Sometimes it's choosing joy, even when grief is still nearby. But in every choice to honor what's true, you bring more of yourself back into the light. You walk differently now. You speak with a deeper voice, not louder, but more anchored. Your eyes carry something ancient, something soft. Not because you've avoided pain, but because you've walked through it, and found gold on the other side. This is the gift of remembering. You now know that your light was never lost, only hidden. That your voice was never weak, only waiting. That your worth was never gone, only buried beneath layers of forgetting. And the beauty? Now that you've returned to wholeness, you can live from it. Not just visit it during quiet nights or sacred moments, but carry it into your relationships, your work, your choices. You begin to ask different questions. Not what do I need to fix, but what do I need to nourish? Not how can I be better, but how can I be more me? And when you forget again, because you will, you won't fear it. You'll know how to return. Because you've done it once. Because your soul remembers the path now. Because your light is not fragile, it is faithful. So let this be your prayer now. May I walk as someone who knows they are whole. May I speak from the voice I once silenced. May I live not to prove myself, but to express myself. May I carry joy like a birthright, not a reward. And may I never again abandon myself in the name of belonging. Because now you know. You never truly lost it. It was waiting for you to remember. And you did. So breathe deeply. Stand gently in your new beginning. And know, with all of your being, you are home. And if this message held your heart, like it. Comment what you're reclaiming. Share it with someone whose soul has forgotten its own brilliance. And subscribe, because this is only the beginning of your return.